So today I'm joined by Evett Baranov, who's the Global Digital ABM Lead for EMEA and APAC at Workday. Evett, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, let's kick off with a question around Workday's approach to account-based marketing, which I think is a little bit novel in its approach. I think if things are still as they are, you have two independent account-based teams, an ABM team and then an ABX team. Would you mind sharing with the audience what are the key differences and perhaps the focus of each one?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. So we have two ABM teams at Workday. One focuses on the one-to-one approach to account-based marketing. So essentially, they have a small list of accounts determined with sales, and these accounts are a mix of short and long-term opportunities. So their task is really to create personalized and customized experiences for Workday's top prospects and customers. This is where I actually started my ABM journey, was in the one-to-one team. And this team is currently global with regional leads running the programs across our key regions. And so their goal is to create what we call stage one opportunities, which essentially means there is a viable opportunity and it's been verified by sales. As ABM one-to-one has evolved, and I mean, ABM one-to-one program has been around for probably 6 years or so now. These goals have really evolved over time. Like everyone, when they start the ABM programs in their organizations, you're starting with those smaller goals. And then as the programs become more robust, you really can create more comprehensive goals. So these goals, really vary determining where these accounts are on in their sales journey. But essentially, some ABMers actually focus on deal support, not just getting those opportunities across the line, but actually helping them close the deals with those accounts. And then there's also potential for upsell opportunities with customers. And so historically, the main KPI was getting these deals across the line in terms of being verified by sales. As well as the one-to-one team, I currently sit in what's called the ABX team, account-based experience team. And essentially, this team is separate to the ABM one-to-one team. We are really the umbrella to the regional marketing engine. We are targeting a select subset of targeted accounts that are based on sales and marketing intelligence data, which are most likely to convert in a given year, as well as being the biggest potential accounts by deal size. We add, as I mentioned, additional support on top of the general demand generation programs that the regions are running, and we're not clashing in any way. So we don't actually remove the accounts from the regional programs. We're complementing everything they're doing in the region. So it's really running alongside our peers. We're also a global team, but we're largely based in the US and myself outside, covering EMEA and APAC from London.
Yeah. That's very comprehensive. Let's just break down a couple of pieces there, if you don't mind. So the one-to-one team, it's really interesting what you call about stage one opportunity. So therefore, the ABM team deliver the opportunities into the sales leadership. Is that right? And then the sales leadership say, "That's fantastic. We can take that forward." Is that how it works?
Yeah, I would say it's sort of a partnership. So it's been verified by both marketing and sales, but essentially it's a point in the journey where there is enough engagement from the account. There's enough interest. There's been an initial conversation from with our sales development reps to suggest that there is a viable opportunity there. And for us in the marketing organization, that's always been one of our key goals, was just to get it to that stage and then really pass it over to the sales team and the pre-sales team that sort of then continue that sales journey. But yeah, really at that cusp of the journey where there is strong enough interest to suggest that they are interested in one or more of our products.
Does that suggest then that the majority of the one-to-one work that you do is with new logos, or is there also a customer expansion element as well?
Uh, I would say majority is net new logo. That's historically where we've been involved. I wouldn't say necessarily that's the easiest way to do account-based marketing, but essentially that's where we started, was with net new large cold prospect accounts. But what's happened over time as our customer base has grown significantly is there's been an ask from the business that account-based marketing support customer upsell opportunities. And so now we're starting to see a bit of a shift where we are being more involved in the customer space.
Yeah. And then what was interesting, I think, as well, Yvette, was you mentioned there, it's not just about the kind of classic ABM approach, but it's also about um, the sales journey. It's about deal support. It's about, as you just mentioned there, it's about upselling to customers. So it's great to hear that I'm hearing that more and more, that ABM teams are getting involved in deal acceleration, pursuit marketing is often called, or deal-based marketing as well. So I think it's great to hear that as well, really. And then just in terms of the element that you work in, which ABX, which is an interesting use of that term, obviously, to kind of differentiate it from the one-to-one um, program that you're running. I think it's interesting to say that you sit on top of, you're almost like a layer
Yeah.
on top of your demand gen, that you don't. And it was interesting you said that you don't interfere, but you actually complement. Could perhaps, for the audience, how do you go about not interfering? I.e., how does that relationship work and the conversation work? Let's say you're not interfering, for want of a better word, with the existing programs that are going into the existing accounts.
Mm. Yeah, that's a really good question. And constantly a question I get internally because it is difficult because, uh, as being in such a large organization, there is just so many different marketing teams. Everyone's doing so many different activities, and we're really trying our best now to really create what I would say is a journey. So it's a little bit clearer to everyone how everyone is contributing to these accounts. But what we tend to say with ABX is really the way we go to market in terms of our channels is slightly different to the rest of the organization. So specifically, we use Demandbase for our advertising purposes. No one else currently in the organization is using Demandbase for programmatic advertising. So we are targeting them with a different channel. We use different vendors. So we're sort of targeting them in a different way. And we're already using messages that have been created by our solution marketing team. So we're not creating the content, we're using existing content. And essentially, this content is quite high level. As you can imagine, being a team that supports a large amount of accounts and regions, we can't be as personalized as the one to one team. So the messaging normally consists of, persona based messaging, industry based messaging. So again, I feel like how we're complementing the regional programs there is that we're not being too direct in what we're saying, right? We're really complementing that over broader approach, that persona approach, industry approach, thought leadership approach messaging. And so it's really, again, complementing with what the regions would be doing, which at times could be more direct, more personalized to those accounts.
Yeah, I think it's good to hear. I think it's good to hear how you can have the two operating in tandem,
Yes.
right? And also, there's always this debate about, demand gen or account-based marketing, but here you're showing that you can do both at the same time. Let's talk about account selection, which I know, is a little bit or many people can find it difficult to do and to do well. But I think you've got something a little bit different there at Workday. Let me just see if I get this right. You have something called WAM, which is not the pop group with George Michael, but rather you work. There's no H in it. So basically, it's Workday's addressable market. Talk to me about how you go about account selection, and what this is about, your WAM, your Workday addressable market.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So essentially, Workday's addressable market is the broader program that we have at Workday in terms of being able to identify the accounts that are most likely to be potential Workday customers. So as you can imagine, for a region, this can be hundreds and hundreds of accounts. And this is what the regional marketing teams, all the other marketing teams, they are targeting this very, very big broad list, all these potential customers for Workday. And essentially, what we do in ABX is we try to take a portion of it. So, as I mentioned earlier, we are really targeting the accounts that have the potential to be the biggest and largest opportunities for Workday. And essentially, we call this the top 15% of accounts because essentially what we've seen is the top 15% of accounts actually generate 50% of the revenue for Workday globally. So, no other team at Workday at this point is targeting the select subset of accounts. And so we're making sure those accounts are getting the incremental love and attention they deserve because everyone else has just got so big scopes and objectives that we can really tailor our approach on those accounts that are really showing intent and engagement and interest in Workday's products and services. So what my team has developed and deployed in building our account selection model was actually based on what's called a FIRE score model. And that's essentially fit, intent, relationship, and engagement. And that's through account segmentation via Demandbase. And these 4 dimensions are quantified and rolled up into one score, which is easily ranked and interpreted by a broad sales and marketing audience. So this is really how we sort of, I guess, stand out from the crowd in terms of really being methodical in choosing those accounts. And I mean, this is, I would say, has taken years to develop. It's not something, um, that has happened overnight. My team, we actually have someone who came from Demandbase, really have that expertise to build this program, which is incredibly impressive. But just to explain a little bit about what each of those FIRE definitions are. So fit essentially qualifies how well a prospect matches the ideal customer profile for a given product, but doesn't indicate if the prospect is in market for a solution today. So it's sort of like an indicator. Intent helps us understand if a prospect is researching keywords related to a specific line of business. Relationship data contextualizes where a prospect is in its journey with Workday, and engagement allows us to see which hot accounts. These are the accounts that are spending the most time interacting with Workday through a multitude of first-party data sources. So the dynamic data that powers FIRE scores comes from first-party sources connected with Workday CRM, as well as third-party sources via Demandbase. And this FIRE model helps us as a team as well as sellers. So we do also provide this information to the sales team to identify segments of accounts by using one score to represent the revenue potential and readiness to buy. And these segments driven by FIRE scores pave a path to highly calculated prioritization and activation of these accounts. So from an optimization perspective, marketing now knows which accounts to heavily invest in right now and which to continue nurturing in less expensive channels for the future. And we've also been recently trialing, as well as having this scoring model, is having journeys as part of Demandbase. So essentially a journey model lets us see how ABX accounts are moving through various engagement stages. And I mean, this is very early days. We've just recently launched it within the ABX program at Workday, but this has been really well received because I think for marketers, uh, they really resonate with buyer journey models. And I think seeing it sort of in a visual sense rather than a score has really resonated better with our internal colleagues, and being able to see that, hey, the progression is being made. Because sometimes with account-based marketing, as you know, sometimes it's just the smallest of movements that, creates impact or, shows success. So having it now in sort of a visual representation, I think is being really well received because it shows that the smallest things we're doing is making impact. We are seeing more engagement from the account.
Well, that's quite a summary really of how you go about it. And I've just been making lots of feverish notes here in terms of the FIRE score model: fit, intent, relationship, and engagement. And as you said, it's a combination of first party and third party data. And then obviously the keyword, then as you mentioned, if that was obviously prioritization. So that's helping you to work out of that wham, so to speak, that you have of those accounts, which ones deserve and warrant, as you said, investment now versus nurturing to keep them keep you rather top of mind while they're going on that journey. And then so linked to that, really, I suppose, is the question. This methodology and this process seems very, very novel in terms of its approach. What has been the kind of the downstream success of that, i.e., the ROI? What are you seeing in terms of from this innovative account selection? What are you seeing in terms of conversion rate, deal sizes? Can you share any kind of data there?
Yeah, sure. Happy to. And yeah, I wanted to give as clear of a definition as well because it is so complex. And you can imagine as well when I'm talking internally to stakeholders, it takes them a minute to really understand the account selection model because it is huge. It's really impressive. And I'm happy to share as well after the call. Like sometimes just seeing it in a visual format sometimes is easier for people to understand. But yeah, with our ABX accounts and with I guess where we are today with Workday, we sell so many products now. There's so many buyers out there. There's a higher level of scrutiny needed, right, in terms of making sure we're getting the right return on investment. So, with the ABX program, we're really supporting these complex motions by being able to target the right messages to the right targets with the right solutions. And being able, like I mentioned, to personalize it by industry and specific value propositions, beg your pardon, based on their intent profile. So we assume that important milestones are happening offline and without direct interaction. So our marketing seeks to engage and educate in all channels. And so the incremental cost of ABX pays off in the direct impact of revenue, of focusing on the most valuable sales opportunities. And just to give you some stats, because I know you'd like to hear them, ABX accounts are more than likely to have 3 times the larger account value size compared to the broader Workday's addressable market list. So as I mentioned, we're really targeting the biggest and largest opportunities. So we're 3 times more likely to have a larger deal size than those general Workday addressable market accounts. ABX has a 2 times win rate compared to general WAM account and general marketing programs. And we have 44% faster conversion to stage 1, which I mentioned was essentially where we qualify the account for a sales opportunity for ABX accounts than the general WAM. So with all this data that's been put in place, we definitely have the metrics to support that this is working. It is obvious when you look at the data that we are targeting those accounts, and they are the ones that are the biggest and potential opportunities. So kudos to the team there, that we are being really good at finding those accounts.
So 3 times larger deal size, 2 times win rate, and a 44% conversion to stage 1, which is that key KPI that you have there in your business. They're pretty impressive rates. That even, I've talked to a lot of ABMers over the years, and these are very, very, very impressive rates. So kudos, as you said, to you and your team for that. So that leads well, just like a side question, really. Are you suffering from too much success? I Are people now are people now coming to you and say, "Do this, do this, do that to this account, do that to this account?" Are you suffering from, "Hey, guys, look, you need to give us a bit of space," or is that actually happening there at Workday?
That's a really good question. What I would say is that what we're facing at the moment so I talk in terms of the regional context because I support 5 regions, is that, all good and well that you guys, have these fantastic stats and you're creating this great impact, but what's that to do with me? What's that to do with my business? How's that directly impacting my region? How's that directly affecting my immediate pipeline? So what we've realized as well is that we need to talk in the language of the regions. I think from a leadership perspective, what I've mentioned today is very important because, it obviously shows that, that there should be an investment in the ABX program. We are doing the right thing. But when you talk to our direct stakeholders, I think we are working on, doing a better job of, showing more. I would say what they're interested in more is the tactical performance at this point is, okay, how is your advertising performing? How is your content syndication performing? All those digital channels that we target with ABX. I would say historically that's where the interest has been more on a tactical level in terms of, okay, how many clicks, how many people are we getting to the Workday website? And I mean, ideally, we want to take it a little higher because, as I mentioned earlier, we're really targeting accounts more holistically. If we get a marketing qualified lead, that's fantastic, but that's not our priority. We really just want to see those accounts engaging and moving through the buyer journey. So, yeah, it's a great question in the sense of, yes, great and all having these fantastic stats, but yeah, definitely when we're working with different teams, especially with the regional field marketing teams, I think we're sort of needing to find that balance of actually showing, yeah, we are making impact, we are helping those pipeline gaps that you're having in regions, being able to have more of that local conversation, because yeah, like I mentioned, those figures that I've mentioned are great from a leadership perspective back in corporate, but down in the boots on the ground, I think they're interested more in the weeds.
Yeah, but no, that's quite normal as well.
Yeah.
Going back to that point you mentioned around, how you have your other programs, use demand gen, etc., and ABM or ABX rather sits on top of that.
Yep.
That kind of incremental impact of the ABX program, and link back to these numbers. I suppose that my question would be, how does that incremental impact get measured? The numbers that you shared, is that the incremental impact, or is that the overall impact on those accounts? If you see Last question.
Overall. So
Yeah.
what I would say as well is that when we're doing our measurements, we're measuring as part of everyone's activities in terms of what everyone is contributing to those accounts. But in terms of our account selection model, it's suggesting, okay, we are picking the right accounts. We are, engaging them and providing some incremental attention. But it's not to take away the credit from the regions as well, because the regional teams are also creating those marketing campaigns and opportunities. So we can't take full credit, for example, that the account has become a stage one. Everyone has contributed to that goal. But at times, I would say in some regions, for example, they don't have big marketing teams, they're limited in resources and budget. So where I can make impact in those situations, that's where really we've created a big pulse in terms of I guess that demand gen sort of activities perspective. But yeah, not to take away from the regional teams, everyone is contributing to those accounts becoming a stage one. We're just showing that we're picking the right accounts that are becoming a stage one opportunity, but in no way are we taking the full credit from what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, good point and well shared. Let's just talk then about the ABX program there. I believe is it primarily a digital program that you're running, or on top of what, as you mentioned before, what the field marketing and the local teams are doing? Is it primarily digital,
It
programmatic,
is.
as you mentioned? Yeah.
Yes, it is. And like I mentioned, we're really targeting the right accounts at the right time, and we're also trying to target those. I'm sure you've heard it recently. It's become a bit of a hot phrase, hidden buyers, because with the general, I guess, demand gen programs, they're very set on their lists. They're very set on who they're targeting. And so our digital programs is about, like the word ABX suggests, experiences, capturing people where you might not expect to capture them. Just being able to get the right message at the right time at the right place. I just feel like just that mentality is a little different in the ABX team to the general demand generation teams, where they really focus on the MQL. And we sort of focus on, okay, have we had the engagement from the account? Have they moved through that buyer journey? We try to look at it more holistically. So for sure, I just wanted to make that point. But yes, we are a digital program. And just to explain a little bit in terms of how that looks like. So as I mentioned, we obviously create the account selection process. We do the account selection program. We actually do it a number of times throughout the year. We refresh the account list. As you can imagine, accounts move, things change. So every sort of 6 to 8 weeks, we're constantly evolving that ABX list. And when we're creating our digital programs, what we do first is really align to the key product motions for the business. So as you can imagine, for Workday, that's HCM and financials. And then we connect with the regions to understand their marketing plans and priorities. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done in the background in terms of making sure that alignment is there and really, catering to what overall Workday priorities are as a business, and then specifically to the regions, because there are certain nuances for each of the regions. And then we work with our solution marketing team to discuss key messages for these audiences. So, like I mentioned earlier, we don't create things off the bat. We're not, content marketing experts. We're not, messaging experts. We really leverage our internal teams to provide that information to us. And essentially, then from there, we can create a marketing plan with ABX using the tactics that our team leverages, which is largely programmatic banner advertisements that lead to personalized landing pages and content syndication. Those are probably our three key sort of tactics at this point. But in saying that, we can do other tactics. So, for example, paid social media. As I mentioned earlier, we do actually have a seller enablement program because, you know, sales are just as needed in terms of having that access to that data and information. So our sales development reps now have access to Demandbase to be able to prioritize their accounts when they're sort of, chasing down their opportunities. A really random example that I did back in Australia was out of home. there was a need to just get the messages out there directly to an industry sector. So I built an out-of-home program and direct mail. So we always leave room for test and learn because, every region has different needs. We don't sort of limit ourselves, but I would say historically our sort of expertise has been in programmatic banner advertisements, leading to those personalized landing pages and content syndication.
Yeah. I love that test and learn, which I suppose is kind of one of the foundations of any ABM ABX program, right? Is leaving some room to test and see what works. And out of home, tell me a bit more about that.
Yeah, so it was definitely a first for the ABX team. Essentially, I learned about out of home when I was in the one-to-one ABM team. So essentially, it means being able to create these display digital advertisements, in a physical sense, right? So the things you see in the airports, at the train stations. And so essentially, the example I did for out of home in Australia was we were launching essentially a new play with a key industry in Australia. And the team regionally didn't have the budget, were not really kicking things off until the new year. And there sort of was a need that, hey, you've got some of our accounts in your program. Is there anything you can do to sort of kickstart this initiative before the new year starts? And so essentially this opportunity came where we could create some advertisements targeting this sector across airports and train stations and on buses in Canberra, which is the capital city in Australia. And again, a little out of the box, but it was so successful in the sense of just being able to directly get that message to the key audience. Just being able to sort of introduce ourselves to the market. It was sort of in alignment with our brand team. And yeah, it was a really obscure one. It's not something we do every day. It's very expensive. I wouldn't necessarily tell everyone this is the secret to all our problems, but it was a great way to sort of kickstart our approach into this industry, really get our name out there. And yeah, it was just a fun opportunity, to be honest. I love a bit of brand advertising. You can't go wrong, right? You're getting the message directly to those customers and prospects. And yeah, it was quite successful, actually. We did get even just senior stakeholders contacting sales, being like, hey, I saw your ad at the airport. Like, I'd love to, we weren't expecting that in any way. But that was just, yeah, a really random opportunity that I did about a year ago.
And out of curiosity, did you have any kind of CTA on these adverts at the airports? Was there anything that they, like a QR code or something that
Yes.
they could? It was, yeah.
Yes, to
It-
to
it-
to the website. So we had built a sort of a customized page on workday.com for this industry. And so, yeah, essentially there was a QR code for them to go to that website.
Fascinating. I love that. I love that example. Particularly, the amount of time people spend in airports and train stations or
Yes,
whatever.
well, especially executives who we're targeting, right? So we're targeting C-suite executives. As everyone knows, it's so hard now to get anything in front of these leaders. And as you can imagine, they're constantly traveling, right? So it's a wonderful opportunity to get the message directly where they'll be, which is traveling.
And out of curiosity, obviously, Canberra, it is the capital. I know that in Trivial Pursuit, it is the capital of Australia. But why would you choose that city over Sydney or Melbourne?
Yeah. So it's down to the industry. So we're targeting the public sector industry. So that is the base is in Canberra. So all the senior executives, a lot of them don't actually live in Canberra. So they all fly through the airport. So that's why.
Un- und- Understood. Okay, let's just talk about personalization, which is a bit of a hot topic at the moment in ABM ABX. What 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 level of personalization do you achieve if you're doing quite a high level of digital into these target accounts, which can be in the hundreds or thousands, I think, can't they, in terms of the number of accounts that you're looking to target? Where do you sit on the personalization scale?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think I alluded to it earlier. We really have a team of 6 people running ABX globally, and as I mentioned, I think we've got about 6 or 7 regions that we're supporting. So we really need to be scalable and templatized at times because there's only so much we can do, and we have so many regions to support. So as I mentioned, we sort of create, I guess, broader messages in terms of being aligning to thought leadership, persona-based messaging, and industry-based messaging. So when we're creating our programs, that's where it sort of lends itself in terms of, I would say, the personalization aspect is, being able to create those personalized landing pages for industry, being able to dynamically create personal advertisements. So we're able to, dynamically change them for the industry. So uh, again, this is why we have two teams, and why the one-to-one team, this is really their bread and butter, is they can really create those customized, personalized programs for, a CIO at this company, super specific, super tailored. And we're just not able to do that with with the team we've got. So that's how we sort of, I guess, align from a personalized standpoint, is really through those industry persona and thought leadership style messaging. But yeah, that's sort of as far as we can take it. And really, with technology, that's sort of enabling us to be able to do that in a faster way, I would say. Historically, if I'm creating multiple industry programs for a region, was very manual. Like, for example, one for retail, one for financial services, one for tech and media. But with technology now, I'm able to create it and make it more automated. So it's like you build one campaign instead of 5 campaigns. So technology is actually enabling us to become more personalized. But in terms of those messages, like I said, we can't at this point directly target the CIO of this company. It's really on the account level that we're
Yeah.
targeting and being able to use those messages.
Yeah. So basically personalizing, as you said, at the persona industry level, taking that through to a landing page, changing the experience based on who they are
Yeah.
and which industry they're working in. And where do you lead to that idea about landing pages? Where do you sit on the whole gated, ungated? Some people are very nervous. Traditional marketers get very nervous when they don't see a form fill. Where do you sit on that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Constantly, conversation we're having internally. And I don't know, where it comes from. Maybe because for so long we've just been so drilled on MQLs and being able to see those lead capture forms. But like I said, we really try to be more holistic in the ABX team. We know we're targeting the accounts, right? We know we're targeting a set list of accounts, right? So we know we are already getting them in terms of how we're approaching the targeting aspect, right? So when we create these pages, we want to encourage exploration. We want to encourage C-suite to come on these pages. And the reality is, people do not want to be filling in multiple forms. And really, they might have 1 minute, maybe they have 5 minutes, maybe they only have 30 seconds. So while we have them, we just want to capture their attention and just give them what they need in terms of content. If they fill in a form, great. If they don't, then okay. So what we do is we try to have a little bit of a mix. But I would say largely we're really trying to encourage that exploration side. And this also talks to the earlier point I mentioned on hidden buyers, right? We're targeting the people we cannot see. We know we're targeting the account. We don't necessarily know who are the people that are coming through at times, right? And that's okay. We don't need to necessarily know because, as you know, with a buying decision, there are a number of people involved, and there's some people who are sort of involved in the front and some who are in the back. And it just happens that with our programs, we're just making sure that everyone has the opportunity to explore. But if one person fills in the form, the other doesn't, then, that's what it is. But at least we know we're targeting people, we're targeting the account. That's my my biggest point here, is that we know the list, we know who we're targeting already by the account level. So that is enough of a tick box for the ABX team to be like, okay, we know we've got the account interested. Okay, this is the sort of experience we can provide them. And just look at things, like I said, a little bit more holistically rather than this tactical view that a lot of regional marketers have and demand gen leaders is, oh, where's the impressions? Where's the click through? Like, I mean, that's all very important data, but, really the success of the program is looking at data over time and, yeah, just being a little bit more holistic about things because this I haven't got the stat on the top of my head, but I think it was maybe 20 or 30%. But essentially, there are so many opportunities we get at Workday that at times have had little to no MQLs. So what I'm saying there is that there are accounts that still come across the line that have actually engaged with none of our, from a traditional sense, MQL metric standpoint. And it just shows that people are consuming things in different ways. And you need to sort of keep the net quite open, because there are, if you just focus on the MQLs, there are people that you might be missing. And so that's again down to my point of why we focus on the account level rather than on the individual.
I think that's great advice, Evett. I think in terms of hidden buyers or lurkers, or as you said, they're in the back seat. They're not visible in the front seats, but they are playing a huge part in that decision. I think it's really important, and I think if you can surround the account or you can envelop the account with your experience, then it will filter through and it will have an impact. And as you said, the numbers you shared earlier are very good numbers, so there's no arguing with those numbers, right? Um,
No,
linked to
no,
that,
okay.
no argue. So linked to that, Yvette, obviously we all know that ABM ABX takes a long time, but when we were chatting before this recording, I think you said that you had, there are some ways where you can help people to show results, so to speak, while you're waiting for the bigger result to come. So what's the advice you would give to help people demonstrate that the program is working, even if they're not seeing necessarily the dollar number?
Yeah, yeah, that's a really great question. And I mean, I've been doing account-based marketing now for over 5 years, and one of the big things I've learned, and I mean, personally for me, is that ABM is generally seen as a long-term strategic program. It is not a quick win. If you need a quick win, talk to the demand generation team, talk to the paid media team, talk to the other teams who can deliver those quick wins. But from an account based marketing perspective, for me and how we've done it at Workday, it is strategic, it is long term, it takes time, it takes effort. And I think internal marketing is actually so crucial in saying this. How you position account based marketing in the organization is key. Education is so key here, because I feel like everyone's got such different views on what account based marketing is. It's such a general term now. And so it's really important to really be clear internally in terms of what account based marketing means to you and to your organization. For us, it's a strategic play. It takes time. It takes a robust account selection strategy and a go-to-market strategy to build. And I think that's a key thing for me, is just being able to position it in the right way. But in saying that, though, in the early days, the smallest of things can be seen as a win. Um, and executive engagement, for example, for me was such a crucial win in those early stages. I would say, like a lot of ABM marketers, initially, it's difficult to measure account-based marketing performance. Maybe it's not necessarily integrated with, the general performance. It's not in the dashboards. It's difficult to show success. And for me, early on, those little executive engagements was just a really easy way of showing a win. Like, hey, we're being able to get those messages to that CIO or CHRO. Like, I mean, this is simple as just an email response, right? I've sent perhaps a direct mail campaign targeting a group of decision makers at an account. One of them responds and says, "Oh, thank you so much for this gift. This was actually, I'm just thinking of an example I did during COVID. I did a wellness kit, essentially being really top level, not focused on Workday at all. Just, hey, here's a bit of a self wellness kit. I know everyone's going through a tough time. Just wanted to, send you a candle, a meditation book, just this little like gift hamper." And this account, this CHRO, again, zero to little engagement with the account, just appreciated the thought and sent an email. And for me, that was already such a huge win, because the sales development rep hadn't gotten them, the general marketing engine hadn't gotten them. I got them, right? Because I was able to engage them in such a unique way, in such a personalized way, right? So what I would say for those earlier in the journey is definitely grab those little nuggets, be able to report on them, and especially executive engagement. I think that's such a key one, because it's already hard enough to get decision makers engaged. So anything counts. But also, finally, what I wanted to mention, being able to try to be as clear as possible with the activities you're doing, showing how everyone is contributing, being able to sort of create that map of marketing activity, sales activity. Like I mentioned, at Workday, at least, we've got so many different teams. It doesn't have to all be on you. And if you are fortunate to have other marketing departments at your organization, actually paint the picture for sales and be like, hey, this is what everyone is doing to help move this account. Because it can be a lot of pressure on ABMers that it's up to you to really spin that needle and really make the difference. But if you have, other people around you, try and leverage what they're doing as well to paint a full picture for sales, because often or not, they don't actually know everything that's going on. Maybe they know about one or two events, but in reality, they're not as familiar with the digital side, I would say. And so being able to paint that picture for them also, I think, really helps people understand and really appreciate, hey, everyone's contributing to this overall picture here. Um, but yeah, I would just say, just take those little wins where you can get them. I'm so sympathetic with anyone starting their ABM journey. It is really challenging, but where you can, grab those wins and just talk about them, and mention them where you can.
I think some great tips there. I love the thing about if you want, I mean, I was just could imagine a T-shirt actually saying, "I- if you want quick wins, go talk to the other team." So I think that's what you mentioned about if you need quick wins, go talk to demand, go talk to paid media, go talk to whoever else, sales. ABM isn't the quick win team. I love that. I think the second thing you mentioned about anecdotal stories, the fact that you could tell that story about you got the contact, you got the response from the CIO or the CHRO, whereas the other teams didn't. Those kind of anecdotal stories are very powerful, particularly at the beginning of an ABM program. So I think those are great pieces of advice there. Just a few more questions, Yvette, just to finish off with. Um, One thing that you said to me, which really jumped out before we were recording this, was you said ABMers need to be commended. They're doing such a hard job, and it's such a tough job, rather, and no one is patting them on the back. And that really jumped out to me because, yeah, I mean, ABM is such a tough job. Not that any other job isn't, but clearly this one is it's a job over a period of time. You're working really hard. You're sometimes working against a lot of resistance in the organization as well. So tell me more about why you think that's such an important thing.
Yeah, no, thanks for asking that question. Yeah, I think I'm so sympathetic to ABMers. It is tough, because if you think about it, what really grasps, I would say, sales interest is events. And I think no one can disagree with me there. I don't know why. Maybe because it's an opportunity for them to be there, directly speak to their, prospects and customers. But really, the events aspect is really what gets, for at least at Workday, I see it, is really gets all the love and attention because it's such it's just so much awareness, there's so much involvement, everyone's involved. And so ABM sort of gets left behind. And this shouldn't be the case. Especially in the early days of, when I started the ABM program in the UK, like I mentioned earlier, it was really challenging to show success. And, if you don't have the right KPIs in place, you're going to be hitting, so many brick walls because it was just so difficult to sort of, I mean, it was down to the strategy. We're targeting large, net new, cold, multi-million dollar potential customers, right? Huge accounts, huge work to do. And so it takes time, right, to make it. And so, like I mentioned, it's just taking in those early wins, being able to, use those executive engagement moments. But yeah, what I would say is that, it takes so much planning, budget, thought to run an ABM program. We're probably like the thinkers in the marketing organization because we're really taking the time to really understand these accounts. And I mean, sometimes you'd argue we know the accounts just as well as the sailors do. And so I really want to commend anyone that's doing account-based marketing because I think it is a really tough job. especially for those who a lot of times actually hold multiple hats. I've met many account-based marketers who also run the field marketing programs, who also run the digital programs. And so ABM is just one of their many umbrellas or hats. And, it's super challenging because it does require a level of detail and thought behind it. But what I would say is that, you're really, I do really see this like evolution of account-based marketing over the years, that more and more organizations are going to rely on it because there's just so much in the market now. There's just so much competition, especially in the, let's say in the Workday sphere, so many different vendors offering very similar things, right? How do you set yourself apart from the rest? You need to be doing account-based marketing. You need to be doing that personalization. You need to be standing out from the crowd because it is just becoming harder and harder and harder. So I think naturally as well, things will evolve because they will be asking on you more, the sales teams, the leadership, because we need to stand out from the crowd. And an account-based marketing approach essentially means you are, because you're being specific to the needs of the individual, to the company. And if everyone's just doing such generic programs, you're just not going to stand out from the crowd. So in some ways, I hope sort of the marketing landscape will shift, and it's shifting in the sense of we need to be more personalized. And I hope then that comes back to the ABMers in terms of reflecting their great work, and process. And like I said, the best thing you can do is just be outspoken, be clear, show what you're doing. Don't be shy, because especially in like a company like Workday, you can so get lost behind and be this little team over here on the side, at the back, in the corner. And you just get forgotten about. And so, I think ABM is so pivotal. And that's why, Workday's put such a large investment in having both an account-based marketing and ABX team, because, it's obvious that this is a way we can be different and really stand out from our competitors.
Mm, excellent. I think when this episode comes out and people see the impact that you've had at Workday and you and your team, I think there'll be more people who will be clapping from the sidelines for you and your team, and more people raising a glass to the work that ABMers do. Very last questions here, rapid fire, your quickest answers, Yvette. What has been your greatest ABM learning?
Like I mentioned earlier, education is key. There is such a misunderstanding of what ABM principles are. You can never stop educating yourself and others.
Great answer. Hardest part? What would you say that is? Hardest part of ABM?
Probably stakeholder alignment. For ABM to be successful in an organization, you need to be part of a baseball team, as I like to call it. You need collaboration, you need participation from multiple players. Otherwise, ABM gets siloed and forgotten about, and it's difficult to show relevancy.
Good point. Misconception. I bet you got a few of these, but what do you think is the greatest misconception about ABM?
Like I mentioned earlier, that we are a demand generation initiative. No, we're not a quick win. We are strategic long-term play, targeting the company's most important accounts, for at least us as an ABX team. But just generally, ABM is not going to generate the quick win. For me, at least, and how we do it at Workday, it is not the quick win.
Last question. We're recording this on a Tuesday, I think. Let's fast forward to Friday. It's been a really tough week for you there in London, and you're about to shut your laptop down and have a pint of Foster's or whatever you Aussies all do.
Not Foster's.
Well, Foster's. I was just trying to think of another Australian drink. A very nice glass of red wine, which you guys make some amazing wine down there in Australia. And if the phone rings, your mobile rings, and it's an old friend, an old colleague from my previous life, who says, "Look, I'm going to present an ABM strategy on Monday morning to my CEO. What's that one thing I must remember to say? What is that one thing that they must say in that presentation?"
Ooh, that's a great question. Um, I would say, the ABM 101, the right accounts. Make sure you're targeting the right accounts, whether it's one, whether it's five, when it's 100, 200. You need to be targeting the right accounts. If you're not targeting the right accounts, everything else that comes after it can fall like a domino effect. crucial is selecting those right accounts. So whenever you're presenting an ABM strategy, make sure those accounts are the right ones.
And hopefully get the CEO to agree that they have the right look, the right shape, the type of accounts that they want to build the business around, right?
Yes, exactly, because you're putting a huge amount of investment and intention. So, if you're spending money here, right? Account-based marketing is not cheap. So really those account selection, crucial, absolutely crucial.
Fantastic. Well, that's a great way to end uh, this conversation with you, Yvette. Thank you so much for sharing your ABM journey with us today. Uh, we wish you and the whole team there at Workday every success for the future. Thank you for coming on the show.
No worries. Thanks for having me.